Now let's bring in our next guest, Kathy Bostjancic. She's the Chief U.S. Financial Economist for U.S. Markets at Oxford Economics. Thanks for joining us today, Kathy.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
We're so great to have you. You're so well established in the world of economics, and I've watched you on most of the other networks. But I've got some questions for you today that I think our viewers would like to get some insight and tap into your knowledge base there. My first question would be for you, what is ahead for the U.S. economy?
So we believe that the economy is moderating, that this is a normal process when you're this far into a business cycle. Keep in mind, we're a week away from being the longest economic expansion in modern record, so almost 10 years. So that's quite a feat. But at this stage of the business cycle, you tend to see some slowing of economic growth. There's less excess capacity, meaning that there's less a number of people that you can actually employ in the labor market. The unemployment rate's very low right now at 3.6%. So the good news, though, is that we don't see a hard landing or a recession on the horizon. And there is some concern about that, again, when you get long in the tooth in a business cycle. But we see moderate economic growth. We see growth about 2% or so in the second quarter. And for the year as a whole, we see it, close to 2%. Now, that is down from 3% last year. As you know, and many of your viewers probably know, the fiscal stimulus really helped to boost economic growth but that's starting to fade, and we're starting to see some slower growth. The consumer is still on very good footing. The labor market's still quite resilient, although we did have a weaker than expected May employment report. I think the things that are a little bit worrisome, and we heard, and I'm sure we'll talk about from the Federal Reserve earlier this week, is some concerns about the global backdrop, actually, and global cross currents. But part of that, too, is uncertainty on the trade policy front, and then how that could affect business investment and also manufacturing activity slowing a bit, along with the slowing in global economic activity and some of the trade volumes. So those right now seem to be kind of the biggest risk for the U.S. economy.
Wow, Kathy, that was a great perspective there. We've entered in this epic time frame of growth and jobs and economic expansion. And so you're right, the economy is starting to slow down a little bit. Where do we see the threats going forward to job creation? We've got 7.6 million jobs outstanding right now and not enough people to fill them. So where are the threats to job creation?
Well, one of the things that you just touched upon is actually we have more job openings than people to fill them. And in one sense, that's a good problem to have. On the other hand, it is a problem. It means that we have for now a mismatch of skills, right? We have certain jobs that require a certain skill level, and employers aren't able to find them. So that can slow down economic activity, and it can also slow down productivity growth. But again, it's sort of a good problem to have, certainly better than what we had, let's say, 5 or even 10 years ago, for sure. But I think the labor market in general, job growth should moderate. Just to keep the unemployment rate steady, you only need job gains of about 120,000 per month. Now, the 3-month and the 12-month moving average are running well above that. So again, we're probably going to see some moderation. But to put in perspective, I think the May gain of only 75,000, that was a little bit on the low side. We would expect job gains to pick up, and again, to be over 100,000. But I think it's going to be a reach to be able to achieve, the 200,000.
Wow, another great answer. Well, I'm going to ask you a loaded question now, so be careful how you answer this. But I'm dying to ask you this question. We see the rise of the left and talk of socialism and the populist movements that are occurring in this country. Where do you see the potential for socialism to hurt the economy if there's a political swing to the left in the next election?
Well, I think, that is a question that, for us, we really try to stay as apolitical as possible. And obviously we have to take in consideration changes in policy as they happen. But I would say this. I would say that, many of the things in the U.S. economy, what we have seen, in this business cycle as it matures, have been good signs. So one of the things that we look at, and we're concerned not just in the short term or medium term or long term, because it encompasses all of those, is productivity growth. So it's not going to be a direct answer to your question, but I would say that any policies that come out of Washington, whether it's from the right or the left, they really need to start to look at boosting productivity growth. So we do have job demand. We have a solid economy, but what has been lagging a bit is productivity growth. And
Well,
we really need to.
you're exactly right about that. Productivity is the key. Unfortunately, some socialist policies undermine productivity. And I know you want to be apolitical here, and I respect that. But that's all the time we have for you today, Kathy. I want to thank you for joining us and answering our questions and giving us your perspectives on the economy. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.